Today, we are cracking open a really powerful idea from the book Solve First, Scale Later by Tran. It's a doctrine that pretty much turns a lot of the common startup advice on its head. It argues that the real path to success is actually smaller, slower, and way smarter than what you've probably been told.
So think about it. What's the one question that every founder, every startup is taught to obsess over? It's this one right here. It's the question that drives every pitch deck, every VC meeting. It's all about that huge, explosive growth potential.
But here's the twist. According to this book, that is absolutely the wrong question to be asking. In fact, it's a trap that pushes you to grow too soon, multiplies your problems, and for most people, leads straight to failure. So if that's the wrong question, what's the right one?
Well, that brings us to our first big idea, the lie of scale. This obsession with getting big and getting big fast is a dangerous illusion. It makes you prioritize how big you look over how useful you are.
And this is exactly why it's such a dangerous lie. The book puts it perfectly. Scale multiplies whatever already exists. So if you've built a shaky foundation, scaling just gives you a bigger, shakier foundation that's going to collapse even faster. If your product is confusing, scaling just creates mass confusion. Scale isn't a magic wand, it's an amplifier.
And here's the core mistake so many people make. They confuse a startup with a company. A company's job is to execute, to optimize something they already know works. But a startup, your job is to discover what works in the first place. You're operating in total uncertainty. Most founders try to build a company, hiring big teams, building complex systems, when they should really be acting like scientists just trying to find an answer.
Which completely redefines your job as a founder. You're not really a CEO. You're the chief learner. The whole game, the only thing that matters is learning faster than you spend money. Every dollar you spend has to buy you some kind of insight. The second that flips, well, that's when your runway starts to vanish.
Okay, so if chasing huge, world-changing ideas from day one is the wrong move, what's the right one? Well, the book says it's all about a mental shift. You need to stop looking at the horizon and start looking at the ground right in front of you. You need to become a friction hunter.
This is the big switch you have to flip in your brain. Stop trying to find lightning in a bottle. Instead, start looking for the gravel in someone's shoe. Those tiny, repetitive, daily annoyances that people just put up with because they don't know any better? That is where real, valuable business ideas are hiding.
And this isn't just a concept. There's a practical tool for it. It's called the daily mental loop. It's a simple 5-step habit. First, just notice, what slowed someone down today? Then ask, how often does this happen? Who else has this problem? And would getting rid of it actually make them feel relieved? And finally, the big one, is that relief worth paying for?
I just love this quote because it's so incredibly true. The next time you see a clunky website or a confusing form and your gut reaction changes from, ugh, this is so annoying, to, that's interesting, that's the moment. That's when you've made the switch. You've become a friction hunter.
All right, so let's say you've found some friction. But is it a good business idea? How do you tell $1 million problem from a $10 one? For that, we get a simple but really powerful tool to help us evaluate it.
It's called the startup value equation. And the most important thing to see here is the multiplication sign. This isn't addition. That means if any one of these factors is a 0, or even just really low, the total value of your idea plummets. A problem that's super painful but only happens once a decade isn't nearly as valuable as a moderately annoying problem that happens every single day.
Let's look at this in practice. We've got a strong idea and a weak idea. Take a look at the weak one. None of its scores are terrible, right? But because the frequency is so low, the total value is only 480. Now look at the strong idea. Because it has high pain and really high frequency, those two multiply into a massive number, giving it a total value over 3,800. This kind of simple math can save you years of wasted effort.
Now, the book points to one of these variables as the secret weapon, especially when it comes to scale, and that's convenience. Why? Because as humans, we are fundamentally wired to take the path of least resistance. We don't always pick the quote-unquote best option, but we almost always lean towards the easiest one. If you can make your solution the easiest, you're on the fast track to making it essential.
This all leads us to the right order of operations. Before you even think about growth, before you think about getting bigger, you have one job. Prove that you can deliver your solution consistently and predictably. It's all about repeatability before growth.
And this quote just nails it. Getting one customer, that could be luck. Getting a second, maybe.
But getting 10 customers who all have the same problem and are all happy with the same solution? That's not luck anymore. That's a pattern. That's a system. And a system is the only thing you can actually scale.
Let's make this super clear by looking at two different kinds of growth. There's expansion, which is what most startups do. It's chaotic, it's throwing money and people at something that isn't proven, and it feels like you're constantly putting out fires. Then there's duplication. This is disciplined. It's taking a formula you know works and just hitting copy and paste. One is about getting bigger, the other is about getting more consistent.
So, how do you know you found that repeatable system? Well, here's your checklist. When you start seeing these signs, like customers referring people without you even asking, or when you can predict exactly what questions a new customer is going to ask, you're there. That's when you know you're not just getting lucky. You've actually built a machine.
And all of this leads to a final, and honestly, really powerful mindset shift. The book calls it the anti-glamour advantage. It's about learning to love the boring, dependable solutions that don't make headlines but quietly go on to win entire markets.
Because here's the ultimate truth. Markets don't reward excitement. Not in the long run. They reward reliability. You know, a firework gets a lot of attention for a few seconds, but it's the lighthouse that actually saves the ships. A customer might try your product because it's new and exciting, but they'll keep paying for it because they can depend on it. And this isn't just some nice philosophy. It is incredibly smart business. A reliable, maybe even boring solution is wildly profitable. Why? Because it reduces everything you don't want. It reduces customer churn, cuts down on support tickets, and lowers your marketing costs because the product just works.
So this becomes the founder's true north. Forget about being impressive. Forget being a disruptor or a visionary. Just aim to be dependable. Aim to be the one thing your customer can absolutely count on, day in and day out. That is the strongest competitive advantage you can possibly have.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The one rule that should guide every single decision. Before you write a marketing plan, before you hire a new person, before you think about scale, you have one job. Solve the problem first. Always.
So we'll leave you with the book's final question, which takes this whole grand strategy and makes it something you can do right now. Forget about the 5-year plan for just a minute. The real work, the important work, happens today. So what small friction will you make just a little bit smaller?